know I can't do this on my own. It's lonely in the cold, yet even through the rain, the sun gives light to a brighter day. And as the seasons change, I'll find a way with grace to a hope that lasts forever, and put the pieces together.
All right, I'm ready to go. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Linwood Community Church again for our video outreach. I'm Lefty Olguin. I'll be hosting today, and let's go to the Lord in prayer first. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for another beautiful day out here in the desert, clear skies, and waking up with a smile on my face and praising you for this day. So I ask you to open up the Word today and your stories, and that we'll get something out of it and have an enjoyable session. We ask this in your name. Amen. Well, I promised last week I left off right before I was going to leave for Southern California to come back. Reason being, my mother was in the hospital and I wanted to get back closer to home. And but I said I'd go back a little bit in time and talk about this experience I had before I leave. This came right in between, right before me becoming the athletic director. So this experience, again, was something that Lord just taught me, teaches me things, and whether I want to stop and listen sometimes, he makes me stop. Well, I guess to make a long story short, I'm going to just begin where I'm driving home on 101 from San Francisco. I was down there scouting and had dinner with one of the coaches. So I'm coming home and it's late. It's 3 hours to where I was going anyway. So I'd say it's about 10:30, 11 o'clock. Driving up 101. And the next thing I know, I wake up with sparks flying in my face in the freeway, and I don't know what's going on, and so I go to pull the car over, and it won't move, it won't go right, and I didn't realize it, but I was actually already on the cement barriers scraping the side of this rented car from Hertz, and grinding it, and I stopped, and I realized I had fallen asleep. So, I thought, oh man, I must have been tired. Well, I got out of the car and I wanted to check the car to see what the deal was, and the left side of the car was fine. Oh good, not a scratch on it. I went to the other side. It wasn't a car. It had scraped all the way down. All tires were shredded. Everything was shredded. I must have drove about 100 yards scraping at 70 miles an hour. Not a scratch on me. And I got out, walked down to a gas station, called my assistant coach. Vince Lantini jumped in the car and came down and gave me a ride home. I was still an hour and a half away. Didn't think anything about that at all. I turned the keys in, and the guy from Hertz says, "Hey, how was the ride?" It was a little bumpy, but he goes, "Well, where's the car?" I go, "It's in the junkyard in Santa Rosa." I told him what happened, and I'd done the insurance, so that really helped. And, "Are you okay?" And I go, "Yeah, I don't have a scrape or a bruise on me." So thank God, man. I said, "Oh, Lord's taking care of me." Those prayers before you take off and go on a trip, they work. So here I am, falling asleep at the wheel, didn't know it. As time went on, I noticed I was in the middle of the day, I was tired, didn't know what was going on. So it went on for a few years, worse and worse and worse. And then one day, I'm at home sitting on the couch, and my wife comes up to me, and she's asking me a question. I got to understand what she's saying. So I try to answer her and say, "Listen, I don't know what you're saying." But she goes, "Man, there's something wrong with you," because it wasn't English that was coming out. So I go, no, I'm fine. So went to school the next day, and I thought I had caught the flu, man. I stopped. I just walking from one class to another, and I stopped. I go, and I do not feel good, So got my car, I drove home, got in the house, I sat down, she took my temperature at 102. She goes, we better get you to the doctor. So we get to the doctor, and it's 103, and it's going up. And my body's shutting down. And so I get to the hospital, and the last thing I really remember was standing up. My wife and the doctors were holding me, and my cousin Terry Grow had come down. And his wife was a nurse there, Lisa. And they needed to get permission to intubate me because I was breathing almost 100% carbon dioxide. And I know my fingers were turning blue. And that was the next thing I remembered. I was in front of a door, and it was a white door. It was dark all around the door, and there's these little faces, these little smiley faces, just floating around the door. And so I'm saying, well, I'm gonna go. I'm going. Open that door, check it out, man. See what that is. And on my mind, I go to reach for the door, and I woke up. And I woke up in Santa Rosa in another hospital, and they treated me and took care of me. While I was up at the Ukiah Hospital, my cousin said, we got to get you to the doctor. And so the new doctor walked right in and said, this guy's got sleep apnea. I had no idea what sleep apnea was. And after being tested and everything, I found out the reason my body broke down was that I never slept longer than 40 seconds at a time. So I was just gone, and I was that close to dying. And it didn't bother me because I was pretty much unconscious, and there was really no pain. But what happened after I got out of that hospital was incredible. And people that while I was in the hospital and when I was trying to recuperate at home passed away. Three people passed away, and they were my director of the camp that I used to go to, one of the guys at that camp that we hung around with, and that I've known even up to that point in my life, and then my dad's second wife passed away, and then I started questioning God. So why am I still here? No, Brad never did anything. Brad was a great guy. God, why'd you take him instead of me? And why'd you take the camp director, man? She was a God's gift, and why'd you leave me? And began to realize that he needed to put a halt on me, man. Hey, look, you got to get fixed to what's going on right now if you're going to continue to serve me and do whatever it is that we're going to have you do. It took me a while to understand that, but once I understand that, if you're in God's will, it's not like bad things aren't going to happen to you. They do. But it's like there's always going to be a purpose and a reason behind it. And so he taught me that lesson. And I did have a panic attack, or it's a panic attack is what they called it. And I'm laying at home in bed, and all of a sudden something in my body didn't feel right. And all of a sudden my whole body just went into this like I was having a heart attack or whatever. And when I went to the doctor, he says, "No, you have had a panic attack because of a near-death experience." So I go, so I don't take medication or anything, doc. I go, what? He goes, I don't know what to tell you. Just don't panic. So a couple days later, it happened again. I'm just sitting there watching TV, and all of a sudden I could just feel this. And then all of a sudden I said, wait a minute, time out. I said, hey, look, Lord, if you're going to take me home, quit messing around. Just do it. Take me right now. I'm out of here. I'm good. Never had another one since. Never thought about dying since. And I think the basic thing is because I already know where I'm going. And those little lessons that I was taught goes back to you depend on Him. Lean on him, not your own understanding. He's going to direct your path. So then I'm on my way to Southern California, want to get close to my mom. The plans were to move in and help my mom out. My family moved down, but she passed before I could do that. But in leaving Ukiah, California, Mendocino College, I'm on my way to Barstow, and it's funny because my uncle Roy, one of my spiritual mentors, he lived over here in Barstow, and I came down, spent a day with him, and went around meeting different preachers in the area. And this was 1982, and I was coaching football and teaching at San Pedro High at the time, and I had a great time with my uncle in Barstow. But the thing I said when I left, and you never say this, and I'm never coming back to Barstow. I'll never be caught living here, dead living in this town. And it just so happened that all these years later, it was 1982, so 31 years later, I'm in Barstow. And I was actually came down, and I'm teaching and stayed with my cousin Mike, my Uncle Roy's son. So I'm 3 blocks from the place I said I'd never see myself again. So you can't tell God that, because he's going to teach you who's really in charge. And here I am, back in Barstow. Came to Barstow College, and there were some great people. I loved the people. I loved that working at that college when I got there. I think most of all, and then I actually came here to Linwood Community Church. This was my home church. And Pastor Dave had just gotten here, I think, the year before. And so this was our place. And but Barstow had some great people, man. I'll mention a few without telling stories. And if I if I don't mention your name, I apologize, because there's so many. But I had my relationships with Taylor and Kim Ensign, and Taylor and Mike and Danny and Joanne and Barbara and many others. You know, my supervisor, Mr. Joe Clark, who I still look up to, and thank God that he was my supervisor for a time. And I still keep Joe and his wife Elena in my prayers for their health. But most of all was the community, and I came to this community and I got to know a lot of people in the community, and I loved Jeff and Linda Eason when they opened up their Straw Hat Pizza for Thanksgiving, and we'd go down and serve a lot of the kids from school and churches. They'd go down and serve Thanksgiving to the people that didn't have a place to go for Thanksgiving. So Jeff and Linda were especially two of the people that I grew up in this community with, and then Tim and Linda Hayden, and Tim's Cops for Kids, my brother Tim, and he now coming to Linwood Community Church. But just to see what they do for the community and how much they cared for their community and handing out presents and things like that, touched my heart, and I loved it, and I planned on staying. I go, this is, I could do this. This was great. I had my home church. I had this. I had a job that at that time I liked, and then we had a president that came in, and he disrupted quite a number of lives, and put a number of lives on hold because of his. I don't even want to call it a style. It's not a style. His ego got in the way. He pushed good people out, and 7 people left that job and were pushed out of that job because of the way he did things. And but they were blessed. They went out and got better jobs. And I was the last one that got pushed out, and I was a little bit bitter. And tell you the truth, I was a lot bitter. I mean, and it just made that whole time that I was there just shrink to nothing. After all the blessings that we had, I had this knot in my stomach when I'd go to work. Like, so I can tell you, man, I don't stress about a lot of stuff, but I just moved my family 600 miles down. I have a job. I love the people, I love the college, I love the community, and now I have this feeling in my stomach every time I come to work. And I held on as long as I could, and then finally one day I just put a one sentence resignation in, and went in and handed it to him, and he started to tell me, well, we're really appreciative. I said, no. Let's cut it. Here's my one sentence. I'm out. So I walked down the hall, and in my experience at that time was really negative, man. Then I just said, Lord, now what do you want me to do? I thought, I'm planted here. This is what you wanted me to do. So obviously not. And so I applied for a couple jobs, and then the Lord opened some doors like you wouldn't believe. But I wanted to say something. I'm going to read something real quick from Matthew 6:14, 14 and 15. For if you forgive men their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive men their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. So Dr. Brock, if by some miracle you're looking at this video, I forgive you. Good. On to Compton. If I told you, and I did tell my friends I'm going to Compton, they're going to say, Lefty, are you nuts? You're going to Compton, California? He goes, do you understand what Compton's all about? So yeah, I grew up 20 minutes from it. I go, I used to jump the fence at Compton and go play on their little golf course that they had. And so for me, I'm going back to Compton. It was almost like pretty close to going home. And God called me to Compton because they were in need of getting their accreditation back, and I'm glad I was a part of doing that for that. But more than that is the friendships, the people, my staff, the spiritual people that I met there, and then my coaches and my staff were amazing people. I loved working with people in Compton. I loved Compton. I mean, you can look at the news, you can look at all the rap stuff, you can whatever you want to do, but once you go into Compton and you meet people, you realize that it's no different than any other city. And I'm blessed to be there. I have my staff, my incredible administrative secretary, Alice Hawkins, and then my other Alice Mitchell, who came to all the games and she helped out, and my trainers, Dave and Tony, and these people I keep in contact to this day. Shannon, my baseball coach, who I talk to regularly, and Tracy, who should be coaching in the WNBA because she's that good, and Gina, and just Sean. I can name all my coaches, Megan and Keith Higgins, and they were a blessing to my life when I was there. And I enjoyed it tremendously, and it was a blessing for me. So I got to leave a college with a knot in my stomach and arrive at another college and feel that peace and know that God had a purpose. And so I was there for 5 years and enjoyed my time at Compton. Get a chance to put in a Hall of Fame. That community was totally amazing. They gathered together, and some of the greatest athletes. I mean, it was an amazing time and community. And too bad when I left, they stopped the Hall of Fame, and the new president there had a little bit of, whenever you have egos, when you run into egos, the people are the ones that suffer. So that community suffered because now they couldn't get together and celebrate their history. And I just felt sorry that happened. But you know what? The people at the top sometimes make decisions based on what their needs are, not your needs. And that's not what we're supposed to do, especially as Christians. Other people's needs have to come first. So when it says in the Bible that God answers your prayers, but it's on His timeline, I'm going to give you a great example because now I leave Compton and I retired. I retired in January. And I'd already given up baseball. I'd gone a whole different path, a whole different route. But one of my prayer requests from the time I was started coaching, I coached every team that I ever played on. My Little League team, I played on it, then went back and coached. Pony League team, American Legion team, my college team. And the one team that I never had that opportunity was the one thing I wanted to do my whole life, and that was to coach at my high school. So, as the Lord would have it, my really close friend and colleague, Bobby Ramirez, call him the Rammer, he lost his job at San Pedro High. He was the head baseball coach, but he didn't lose it. They were downsizing in LA Unified, and he got pink slipped, so he couldn't teach. So basically, he had to go to another district. Well, that was right in the middle. So baseball was about to start in another month, and they didn't have a coach. So they put it out, and I had some of my former players who were coaching, assistant coaches, go in and tell the principal, hey, now, you can put it out and do your interviews, but Lefty's the one that needs to be here. And so I applied. I was retired. I figured, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I went back in. Principal Jeanette Stevens was totally awesome. In fact, I put her on a Hall of Fame committee because she's totally awesome. And the reason I got called to do it that one season, because it was just adjunct for one semester, one season. I think, honestly, it was so that the Lord could answer my one prayer about that. But the other thing was, they had gone through some rough times with the facility because the people across the street filed a lawsuit because the balls were being hit over the fence. So now they had to build these 50-foot poles with nets so balls wouldn't go over. Well, couldn't use the field. So I was taking a baseball job with no field to practice. Could not hit a real baseball. It had to be plastic balls. So we couldn't play a game. So we had no home games that year. So we had to travel on the road, and we did have to have home games, but they had to be played away. So I had to contact different people, and I had some contacts. So my college, I played at both of the colleges I coached at, and played at the Major League Baseball Academy. Those were our home fields. So we were never in San Pedro playing a home game that year, but we ended up making the playoffs and beat some really good teams and winning 20 games and doing everything that a good program's supposed to do. But I got to tell you, the blessing for me was my coaches. The blessing for me was to be back in my community. My surroundings were familiar. The fundraising, we had I think we raised like almost $30,000 within 2 months. And people would just come up and welcome home Lefty, write me a check for the school. My coaching staff was absolutely incredible, putting on golf tournaments, and the businesses jumped in and helped. 31 years after my prayer was answered, and it was amazing. So all my players, David Stanovich, Matt Stanovich, and Ray Mendoza, who I'm still praying for your brother, Jamie and Joey Miller and Darren Kondash. Man, what a group. Steve Tedesco was a JV coach who ended up taking over the head coach when I left. A fine Christian man. He's doing a great job. But you know what? The Lord just laid it out, and he gave me the coaching staff. And then he brought my friend Danny back, who's since gone, but he brought him back, and we had coached youth league, growing up together, went to college together and everything. And he wasn't doing very well. He was on his last leg. But he came back because his one thing was he always wanted to coach with me at San Pedro. So Lord answered 2 prayers. And so he got to hang with me that season. And he got through the season, and it didn't last very much longer after that. But the program itself, running just like a high school program is supposed to run, but I think all the different things between my coaches and how much I love them and the players. I wrote a book. I wrote a book, and it's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. It's called "Once a Pirate, Always a Pirate," San Pedro Pirates. And so my guys inspired me, and that just time of my life was an answer to my prayer. And so now I'm at San Pedro, and season's over. I go ahead and I don't say my goodbyes because I go back and I watch games. I still take part in things. I still help kids out when I can help kids out. And I help my coaches out when I can do that. So, but then I retire. Here I am in Silver Lakes, Hallandale, California, 20 minutes from my home church, where I hadn't been since 2008. And now it's 2014. Going on 15, going on 16, and I'm home, living in that's not a retirement community, but it may as well be, fishing, and we live on a golf course, get to play golf, and so I was looking around for a church, and that's always the number one thing on my brain, is I got to find my church family, right? And I didn't think about coming all the way back to Linwood, and my wife and my daughter were there. In fact, my daughter was going to Calvary Chapel, and so my wife and I we started looking at all the different. We went to every church in Hallandale and spent some time. And the one thing I could say is they all preached the gospel. They all preached the word. They weren't, any radical people. It was pretty mild, and the people I met in the church, people were great. The last one I was at Calvary Chapel for quite a while. And people were nice. I mean, I got Smiley. I call her Smiley. Smiley Maybon, that was her name for me. And she's always smiling when you go to church. So these people, Cheryl and Lance, I remember because there was such a big part. The people were. Pastor did a great job. He was a very good teacher. I had nothing, really, no complaints. And but just didn't feel right. And just because something doesn't feel right doesn't mean it's bad. So I told Rosie, I go, I'm going back to visit Linwood. She said, what? She said, this is your community, And I go, listen, it's not. It isn't my community. I live here, and I'm not saying anything bad about it. I like living here, and there's great people. I have nothing to say about the people, but for me, there's this feeling in me. It's like when you're from San Pedro, no matter where you go in the world, you're from San Pedro. I met a guy in Guam on our Palau trip last week's lesson, or the week before, can't remember. I met a guy on the other side of the world that surfed with my dad in San Pedro. It's amazing. But you're always from San Pedro. That's your hometown. But my church, this is where God wanted me, man. I opened the doors, came through the back doors, and I hadn't been here since 2008. So I walked into the doors, and it's the minute I walked into the door, and Les, who I hadn't known, just came up and shook my hand. It was like a real greeting. Didn't know who I was, didn't know I ever went here. Just somebody new walked through that door in this church, got on their feet, and made sure that person walking through that door. And I didn't know most of the people that were here. A lot of people came to this church. This church grew. And so there were still some people here that I remembered and knew from before. But it was the feeling I got when I walked in there, and then I actually looked at the people that were sitting in the pews, and all these kids running around, and I saw the diversity, and then I said, I'm home. And for the first couple weeks, it was just me. And then Rosie just says, okay, go back. And she's happy she came back now. Because you just don't know. But I just knew. God took me on this journey. And It started way back. You know, it started when I left San Pedro and went up north. It's on this journey. I look back on it and know that everywhere I went, God had His hand in it. And I get calls. I talked to Mike Higgins Sunday, and so my guys, wherever I've been, my coaches, the people I've been with, they're still in my life. They've never left my life, and God put them there, and He keeps them there. Sometimes you rekindle those things, and I've been back up north. I think I talked about it last week, and to a funeral, and one of my players' sister. And they're just your family, and so as I went around, I realized, I started in Southern California, body surfing the beautiful waves, and get called up to Northern California, the beautiful redwoods, and then down in the desert where you never thought the desert would be beautiful, but if you wake up in the morning, smell the creosote, this desert. It's different. All three of them are beautiful. They have their own beauty. God has put us, my family and I, in each one of those, and blessed us in each one of them. And yeah, we've been through some hard times because, like I said, just because you're a believer and you put your faith in the Lord, that means you got to trust Him through thick and thin, through the bad and the good, and all these different thoughts as I go through, and why the Lord put this person here and this person here, and opened this door. And I'll give you a great example. I started a Hall of Fame in San Pedro, and that's been phenomenal till COVID hit. We've taken some time off and joined on to the Harvard College Hall of Fame, and my cousin David, who's on that, and my coaches, my old coach, and coaches. So I help out, and I do that, and I never forget. I call him my little brother from another mother, Pete Tuiasosopo, has this global prayer chain, and I'll never forget. It was a year ago, January. I'm in this meeting. It's on a Wednesday, into this Hall of Fame meeting. And I got to hit the reading because then I'm done. I got to hustle back for Bible study. And so I get a phone call 2 minutes before we're going to start, and it's Pete. Pete goes, Lefty, my daughter just died. And only thing I could tell him was Peter, because he's a strong Christian, born again Christian. And Peter, God doesn't make mistakes. He just does it. And I talked with him for a little while, and then I went to my meeting, but broke my heart. And so then my wife and I went down to Yuma. That's where the ceremony was. Went down to Yuma just to see the kind of pain he was in, and what he's done, and leaned upon the Lord, started a global prayer chain, started a foundation called Nasili's Fight. His daughter, Nasili, sweetheart. This fentanyl is an amazing drug. Whether you take one, it's 100 times worse than heroin. And even though you can watch over your family the entire time, they're not around you 24/7. And she was just gone. It was instant. And so my heart broke. But through the pain, and I can't even imagine what it is, created a global prayer chain, created this fight, and his testimony, his faith that you could see. And he's an actor, and actors were off for a while, and so he's gone on every Tuesday and Friday, and now back to work. He's got roles and parts, but thank God. I just thank God for these people in my life, and that I can help and I can talk to. And they're all kids that I either coached, or some of them that I coached with, some of them that were parents. Draws them back into my life whenever He needs them to be there. And so that was a blessing. So now I'm back in my church and listening, and I get a chance to fellowship with a lot of the new ones that weren't here when I was here. And we have a nice praise team up here, it's really neat, and to realize that this church is a light in this community, and at the food care center, they open up so people can come and get food for their families, and we have clothes where people can come and buy clothes for a quarter, and if they don't have any money, then they don't have to pay for it. But bottom line is, it's servicing the community. It's going to be a light. It is a light in this community, and I thank God for my pastor. The same guy that was here when I went is a different guy when I came back, because what his job was when he got here, you can't believe this church. I mean, there's just so many changes, and I don't mean it's like they added like big things, but the beautification of the church, the outreach in the community in this church, the people that stepped up, and the buildings in this church. Everything that's in this church is because you have the right leadership and the person that's humble and serving the Lord, not serving and looking for the next step up, the next step up in the salary, or the next step up in church. Or if you read your Bible, which I pray that you do, I don't know, you pick up whatever Bible you want as long as it's a Christian Bible, and read about the first churches when Jesus started, and the apostles. They started these churches. They weren't in homes. They weren't in big buildings. They didn't build buildings for churches. They were spreading the gospel. And one of the things I thank God for is that this church that I attend and I'm a part of now, it's the same. It's the same. So when you say, hey, are you Protestant? Are you Catholic? Are you Baptist? Are you Presbyterian? Don't label me. Do not label me with anything. I love my Catholic brothers, my Baptist brothers, my Presbyterian brothers and sisters, whatever, because they're preaching the gospel. If they believe in Jesus Christ, he died on the cross and rose from again, they believe in God, the three in one, the Trinity. If they have the certain basic beliefs, they read their Bible, and they understand that it's a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. That's what you could label me with. Label me with that. Say, hey, what are you? Okay, I'm a Christian. Well, what's your denomination? I don't have one. Jesus Christ, that's my denomination. I don't have a church. Don't label me. Don't give me a rule. I take my rules from this book. These are my rules. These are my guidelines. And the reason this place is blessed is because the people that attend this church and the person that leads this church, that's their guideline too. And that's what they do. And that's what we do. So he's put me in a spot where I can, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I know I'm here for a reason. I know I've learned a lot from my pastor as my mentor, and when I listen to sermons, I listen to at least 13 sermons a week. And I want to listen so that I can understand. Like when I listen to my pastor, it's from the Bible, and he brings in his stories through his life that show you that's true, show you the answer to that. So I look at that, and I go on TV, I look at some great ministers, I look at some guys that open the Bible, preach right from the Bible, like Stanley. I look at some guys that jump around on stage and put on a performance, and I really don't last more than 5 minutes on that one. So I want to find these guys that are going to preach the gospel without selling me $100 and something worth of this or that. I just want the truth. And I found it in Inwood Community Church. And I'm going to tell you, this one thing bothers me, because I think our biggest problem this day and age is not what's outside, it's what's inside your church. It's what you're being taught, what you're preaching, what you're accepting. If you want to listen to a prosperity speech, go for it. But it's not getting you to heaven. It's not going to get anybody else to heaven, because you're not going to preach the gospel. You're going to preach success. And that's wrong. There's nothing right about that. And I listened to somebody on TV with millions of viewers out there telling his life story, how he came from nothing. His father was a pastor, and his father made $100 a week, and they didn't have anything. And all of a sudden he prayed to God, and God gave him his first 100, then his second 100. Then he started this, and now he's wealthy. And he looked right into the camera and he says, right now I need $1 1,000 people to give me $1,000. And I'll pray for you that you will be prosperity. You just read this verse in the Bible, and I was about ready to click it off until I saw people getting out of their seats and walking down, getting ready to write a check for $1,000 so he could pray for them. And I saw the phone lines with 20 different people up there ringing off the hook like it was a Jerry Lewis telethon. And I thought to myself, here's 1,000 people that want to buy their way to heaven. Can't do it. That's our biggest problem. You got to realize that, you know what, it's not an easy road, it's a hard road, it's a narrow road. It's not a wide road. The way to heaven is narrow. And it takes the faith of a mustard seed. You ever saw one of those? And I just really don't understand. Every time God shows you something that you can't give him credit for and say, wow, man, you're real. Just go look at the stars at night. Think about that. Go look at the things God's made. Think about that. Open up a science book and detail how the human eye is made and tell me that it was evolution. Tell me it was the Big Bang Theory. There's only two theories in this world, man. Number one is the Big Bang Theory. The other one is creation. I choose creation. And I could prove mine, it's simple. I can prove it because I believe it. I have faith. The rest of it, just keep praying for you. But this is going to end my like general life, how it was from the time we left. Actually, from the time I was on this earth. And God had his hand on me the whole time. Whether I was in the hospital ready to die, whether I was on the freeway ready to die, it didn't matter because he had his hand on me the entire way. And if he would have took me, then I'd have been more than happy because this is a much better place than it is down here. But while I'm here, I'm going to serve the Lord and with this group of people in this church, and we're going to continue. And even though my mentor's leaving, mentors never leave. They just make it more difficult to talk to them. So the bottom line is we got telephones, I got emails, and I'm sure Montana's beautiful when there's no snow, and so I'll pick that time to go up and hang out with my pastor Dave. So next week will be a whole different topic, whole different format. I'll bring in some of my stories, but it won't be for that purpose. And so most of you who called me and told me, I never realized you did that, went there, now you do. So that's what my life's about. Anyways, let's close in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for the time I could share a little bit about my life and about how you've not only impacted my life, but brought people into my life to impact me. Just pray that we continue here at Linwood Community Church, and Lord, we've been handed an amazing opportunity to continue to be the light in this community. Opportunity, Lord, to continue to share the gospel and build up this church and keep it small and keep them faithful and focusing on the things you would have us do. And we give you all the praise and all the glory for the things that happen in our life, Lord. We ask in your name. Amen.
The beating of my heart is deafening, but I'm still listening. In the silence after the storm, your voice will bring me home. I can hear you more than ever, taking me to a place that's better, with a hope that lasts forever. I'll put the pieces together, put the pieces together, put the pieces together, together.